Hello, guildmates, or anyone else who, for some reason, is watching this video. This is just going to be a short review of Guild Wars. In Crush Them All, I'm making this video for my guild, the Clown World Honklers. Let's do this, guys. And again, anyone else who's watching, that's cool. I hope you enjoy the video. So, guys, we're going to talk about two things initially for each phase. We're just going to go through them and talk about what I'm doing and then what you guys are doing. And we'll go ahead at the end. We'll wrap it up and review why it is that we're doing everything at each step. So, the basic idea here in Guild Wars is that there are two teams, and you're facing off against each other. Those two teams can have anywhere from 10 to 30 people on them, depending on how many active Guild Wars players your guild has. In the case where one team has more than the other team, the extra fort placements and attacks are spread out randomly among the members of the team that has fewer players. So again, let's say that there's 21 of us and 25 of them. That means that those extra 4 people worth of defense assignments or attacks will be spread out among our players. So besides that little inequality between the teams that might pop up, number of players, and therefore how things get divided up there, that actually has let's start talking about, so what are we doing in round one? Round one, in phase one, whatever you want to call it, phase one of Guild Wars is the team placement phase. So basically, you can see the other teams. I guess you'd say like statistics in general. There's a set of information that you can see at any point. Once you can see that other team in Guild Wars, once day one is started, if you click in that upper right hand corner on their guild's icon, then you can at that point see their stats. As what kind of stats, you can see how many players they have participating in Guild Wars. You can see their average the average power of their top 30 people is what it is. But anyways, that's power, the power status there. So again, if you have more than 3 full teams worth of people enhanced for some reason, you might not get to use them much in 3 versus 3 arena, but they also won't end up counting against your power limit. Same thing for any commons that for some reason you have up to like 3 or 4 stars because they're 8 stars and you're using them to like plow through a bunch of missions, expeditions, excuse me, or something. Anyway, so in general, I'm going to try to be, I try to give some kind of guidance. Right now, we're playing kind of casual, so I'm not going to give a whole lot of guidance about how aggressively to place stuff in forts versus castles. In general, because we're playing in a relatively casual mode, I'm going to ask that my guild is always having a better castle team. And then, if you only have enough, high power heroes to really put together, um, one strong castle team, which you should still splash out and make sure you can field a reasonable second team. And with that said, it's going to be lower powered, but what you can do is make so-called quote trap teams. So rule number one, no commons. You do not want commons in Guild Wars. When you're early in the process, it's acceptable to have a skeleton giant or a spike or a buggernaut giant, some sort of a giant tank that's actually a common, um, up until you can get an actual rare tank, high enough power. But that's the thing, is that point is usually going to be something like, you should have some reasonable 5 and 6 star tanks, like way before you are hitting 8 stars on your commons in many cases. I mean, but if you really just, you're stuck with some big commons, and you got a bunch of little other stuff, you still, like I said, skeleton giant and spike shouldn't even be on the same team. But I'm saying either one of them, or some other big tanky thing. Everything else, you're literally better off having a 4 star epic that buffs your whole team by some stat or another. So just in general, remember your synergies, remember the buffs that are involved. So the big idea about placing teams in phase one there, because of the buffs, is that you want to think about, on the castle team, all of the forts that are in play, which ones are we likely to keep? And which ones are we likely to take? And usually when we're saying what to defend, that gives you some ideas about what we think is most valuable. So the green stuff in general we see as most valuable. The yellow stuff we see as mid valuable for this particular match, because it can change from match to match. And the red is like, these are the least important. So that's where all of the tiny teams should go, is in the least important. So the people that are fielding like, I don't have a whole lot in the guild right now on purpose, but the people that are just like, oh, my secondary team is 40,000. Okay, yeah, definitely don't put that anywhere that it matters. So like, look for the red X, right? Okay, so however, so that's the idea. Pick a fort that is well suited to your role in the guild war. So let's talk about that real fast. If you're a big heavy hitter, you know who you are, right? Then you're going to be defending one of the most important forts. If you're somewhere in the middle and you're not sure, please ask me. I will give you guidance about, whether I still consider you a little bit heavier hitter, or whether I'm more pointing you towards, frankly, the less important stuff. And then and again, like, if you're just, that you're newer, that you have less power, that's fine. You still help our guild wars to the extent that you participate in all 3 phases. I prefer to have low power players if they participate in all 3 phases. The problem is most low power players just don't. And so that's why I don't have very many in the guild right now. Anyway, so the thing is, as a low power player, yeah, you are going to be a bit of a speed bump. I just need participation. As a mid power player, which you should try to get to be as soon as possible, I can point you towards the stuff that's important, but not that hard to take out, right? Or in the case of defending, honestly, most of the time, if you're mid power, I'm going to ask that you make the best castle team that you can, especially make it trappy if you can. Stuff that either stalls them out, or mind controls, or turns them into frogs, or stuns them all, or heals your dudes too much, or summons a bunch of little summons that run and get in their way in their face, or the wall cow. You know what I mean? Okay, so anyway, that's a big thing to remember in Guild Wars defense. Like, you don't have to kill the other team. They just can't kill you. Like, if your guys stay up for the whole freaking like 3 minutes because of your healers or your wall cows or your green fairy shields or whatever other nonsense, like, they're losing. They're not killing all of your dudes, right? And besides, like, unless they have excellent heals themselves, in which case they're doing less damage, then they're probably going to get attrition killed. Anyway, so then phase 1, that's what you're doing. Again, you want your castle team stronger than your fort defense team, unless you very specifically verified otherwise with me. Okay, so phase 2, though. What are we doing next? were taking orders on what forts we're trying to take, right? So basically, the goal there is any fort that is like green marked, if you can hit it, please do that. Like that's the basics. And if you can't, then look for a fort that's marked with the yellow. Do not touch the forts with red unless there's literally nothing else to touch or unless you've gotten very specific orders otherwise. That's literally it for phase 2. Phase 3, of course, that literally it just gets easier every phase, right? All you're doing is you're picking 3 enemy slots to attack, keeping in mind what the buffs are after phase 2, right? And that's, of course, yeah, when you're deciding what you can take on in phase 2, absolutely do remember that the plus 50% buffs on the fort. So like for instance, if you have a magician fort and there's a fire monk in there, then he usually has a million damage. Now he has 1.5 million damage because that 50% buff. Okay, like it's about that simple. So just keep that in mind on that. The use of double attacks should only be if we specifically say that you can use a double attack, and or you have 0 quick attacks left, and you are very sure that you can't do any damage with a single attack. So that's basically it. Is if you're screwed out of options and that's all you can do, or if we ask you to specifically consider using a 2x. The thing about 2x is that you only get credit for 1 attack. It doesn't increase your defenses at all. It only doubles your damage. So that's only going to be worth using when another team is just outside of your reach and you really need to kill it, and you know that you can kill it if you have double damage. That's the only time 2x is worth it, which means almost never are you going to use it in phase 3. And here's why. Like in phase 2, the points are really obvious how they scale from the attacks, right? In phase 3, it's also really obvious, but people don't take the time to look. It's 2 points, every one lower, right? So that just means every slot easier that you have to go to fight a battle, you only get 2 points less. So, for instance, if you have to choose a 4 slots easier person to attack, then that's still only 8 points per attack, only 24 points less for all 3 attacks. So that's where it's at. Anyway, so I went ahead, reviewed all 3 phases. Again, you just want safe attacks that bring you points. Try to avoid using quick attacks unless that's your only option. So, like I said, I'm reviewed all 3 phases there. I'm going to make a secondary video for the people that care, that talk about some other details. But for now, those are the 3 phases. I recommend listening to the video again if it's your first time, because I'm sure a lot of it was kind of